Is the use of single-use plastics an election issue? Is it taken seriously by political parties? Is the issue being addressed adequately? And is enough political attention being given to the issue? The Prime Minister has asked people to inculcate habits that gets rid of single-use plastics, but on the ground, how is the implementation taking shape? Those are issues that we will discuss today on this episode of Mahasangram, and we have political representatives from the Congress and the BJP, Niranjan Shetty, BJP spokesperson, Mr. Naik from the Congress, and of course Mr. Joshi, who's now had this movement, sir, for a while. But tell me something about what exactly you're doing, because single-use plastics is being spoken about a lot. What are the alternative uses that we can have to sort of let people know that this is how you should get rid of that plastic and not dump it on the sea like we see here?
It's a far bigger problem than what we are trying to put it across, because plastic is part of our everyday life. Having said that, refusing plastic is not really possible. So can we reduce at some level? If you can't reduce it, can we even recycle it? And I hope, as you said, it becomes a political issue, because till the time it doesn't become a political issue, people are not going to really see it as a campaign. The bigger problem, yes, we are happy that the Prime Minister has made a statement, so most political parties are following it and people have become aware of it. But till the time people don't really see it as a horror story in their own face, their own lives don't get lost, it's not going to be that serious. Awareness is hugely lacking, and that's why you see plastic all over the place.
The Prime Minister's message, that should be a starting point for awareness, right? Because if it comes from the top person in the country, the top administrator, the Prime Minister himself, shouldn't that be a starting point? How much is that message percolating downstream?
The starting point should be me. You know, the Prime Minister would say lots of things, but if I don't stop using plastic, it's not going to change. And that's where it happens. That's why we at Project Mumbai, we started telling people, just give away your plastic. If I start explaining to them what is good plastic and bad plastic, most people won't understand these things. We get flooded with WhatsApp messages on all kinds of plastic, the bad and the good and whatever. Just say no to plastic, that way we start reducing it.
How has the implementation, in your opinion, been, and where is it lacking, if it is?
If you ask me very honestly, it's a joke. Because every time it's banned, we all know that within a few months it's back in the market. So then it's out there. If plastic is out there, then what's the use of a ban? So ban is seriously a joke. We need to, when you say ban, we should say, I don't see plastic anywhere, that's one. Or I'm not going to give plastic to anybody who even asks for it. Is that what's around us? No, that's not.
So the reality is somewhere in between, and far from what we want it to be.
Not somewhere in between, far from what you see.
And far from what we want it to be. Mr. Shetty, you know, the BMC did implement this ban on single-use plastics. There were these squads going around. Those squads now again seem to have gone a little cold. I mean, where are they? Why have they suddenly stopped coming into the picture?
Saurabh, you need to understand that we live in a country where, all such hurdles are there. So anything expecting a sudden implementation, and as Mr. Joshi said, okay, along with the punitive action, it always has a repercussions to the government and to the people. Basically, they had their own grievances. 50 years down the line, they started using this kind of plastic, and there being no alternative to it. So somewhere down the line, of course, the government has to take some kind of, a backseat on such kind of implementation of the kind of act that needs to. But having said that, what I would like to, bring forth before you, that it was first time in the Indian history that the Prime Minister of India from the Red Fort himself appealed to the people, right from the whether it may be for the sanitation or for the cleanliness or such kind of one-time use of the plastics. Now, you can see the difference. What Mr. Joshi was saying, I think that is what we see the difference. The youngsters are on the road, on the beach, and they have voluntarily coming up and trying to help the Prime Minister of India themselves.
Right, so, the Prime Minister is a very popular politician, unparalleled popularity perhaps. But, I was at a rally yesterday, and this is across issues. What people tend to say as well, the Prime Minister may be doing his job. What about the implementation on the ground? Are his foot soldiers being equally active, equally enthusiastic about the ban? Is that the case?
So I think that we need to look in a different angle. As I said in the beginning, 50 years down the line, people were habitually using all such kind of. One fine day it comes, we took up as a state government, we took up the initiative to implement the 2006 Act, and it was very in a punitive way, and I do not know, it was very stern action against them. So people, there was a lot of repercussions. People were not ready. They were only, they were saying, okay, you could have come out with the alternative. So there is in place, presently there is no such alternative. So we are giving a breathing space for them.
Can I ask you one straight question? Whenever we see things like this slow down, is it because of elections? Because you feel that if you implement it with full force now, you will feel the heat, the anger in the elections that might reflect in the ballot boxes or the EVMs.
But what I would like to say, if you understand what Mr. Modi is and what Mr. Devendra Fadnavis is, they do not care about the elections. On the contrary, what I said, it is the basically public, the problem that they are facing. Otherwise, it was not there.
Now tell me something. When you talk about it in your political campaign, it's there in your manifesto. How much do you talk about it in your campaign?
See, basically, we are talking the way actually these people had already discussed the things. There are some ways we can definitely stop the plastic. Where we are finding the plastics and all. Most probably, we are using drinking bottles, water, plastic bottles.
What stops the government from, say, telling people that, okay, we will not allow, say at a place like this, we will not allow the sale of water bottles. We will put up a water fountain, bring your own bottle, or ask the shop to provide you a glass. And that is one step we can do. So why is these kind of things taking so much time?
Saurav, you need to understand what Mr. Naik said. I would like to appreciate, because he spoke about the common drinking water place. They had 50, 70 years down the line. They could have done this. What he's suggesting right now could have been done in more than almost 60 down years lane. Yes, what you are suggesting, actually the Piyush Goyal or the railway ministers are already implemented in the railway station. Given the space of time and this thing, we will see to it that more such kind of common drinking water locations are being built, earmarked, and under the Amrut Yojana, you must have heard about the Atal Mission's Yojana. Under that, we are bringing all such kind of things under one umbrella, and all such things will be seen at, or probably it will be a past this thing. So no more such kind of water bottles around in the city like Mumbai.
Thank you so much. Before we move into a short break, I'll come back to these young people, beach warriors who keep cleaning the beaches. We'll talk to them. We'll see what their experience is after this short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. We are discussing how much is the ban on single-use plastics, how much is the message of letting go of the use of single-use plastics seeping in to the political narrative during these elections. Are politicians discussing it enough? Before we talk to these young people who clean the beach every day and who would like a commitment from their politicians that we need to do more to stop the use of single-use plastics, need to develop alternatives. I have with me Mr. Joshi. Again, sir, the fact is that when we talk about the single-use plastic ban, the first thing that people say is, oh, but how will I pack my food, or how will I drink water if there's no safe water? And there's a whole lot of other things that are taking place behind the scenes. Tell us, where exactly is the problem?
The problem is that people need to start somewhere. And as both these gentlemen here have said, that yes, once we have a punitive measure, but that has to be thought through, because there's also an economy which is running along plastic. Those people need to be told how they need to look at alternative measures. Then you need to look at, to ensure that people need to start getting aware, and then bring in the punitive part as well. Please do remember there's also a huge plastic mafia that exists, which does not let this entire process to get percolated and move in the way it should, because there's huge money involved. So in that sense, waste segregation, use of, ensure that wet and dry waste gets, and the dry waste gets recycled. Are we even aware of these things and how these things are controlled?
One of these things that you talked about, the plastic mafia, is something Afroz Shah has also been mentioning in several of his places where he's cleaned that beach. These people clean this beach. All of you know what Afroz has done. All of you know what Chinu is doing here, with beach warriors. And every time you'll come and clean this beach, the plastic just returns. How do you feel when you come back and see, well, what can I do? Because I clean every day, but it's back there every day.
So yeah, it is disheartening when we come back and we see that there's a lot of garbage. But then what we need to understand is the plastic has been accumulated over the years. We start this whole movement in Mumbai. Just I think it's been 2-3 years since Mr. Afroz has started it. Then we followed. So the plastic which has been gathered over decades, it will obviously take time to go. So we do get disheartened, but we do not get discouraged. We continue our work.
How much of people do you see in, say, here at Dadar Beach? Every evening people come here. Do you see any awareness? Do you see any change in people? Do you see even a little bit of, let's say, the Hindi word is sankoch, when they use plastics, that I shouldn't be using it, maybe I can do something to not use it?
So yeah, technically speaking, we do see a lot of difference. But what happens is because there are more people who are littering, the ones who have stopped littering are not that visible. But yeah, we do see a change in the whole awareness. There, when we initially started, we had such a local revolt wherein we wanted to just clean, but then they weren't understanding our whole sentiments. But then those have subsided over the days. So yeah, we do see a bit of awareness, and it is getting all positive.
Are you happy with the amount of steps political parties are taking?
To be honest with you, yes, I am happy with what the BMC is doing, what Sena is doing, because like I said, we had initial.
Oh,
a lot
even
of-
the Prime Minister, he's
Yes, totally. Like I think it's just a week back where Mr. Modi ji also went and cleaned a beach. So it's a whole movement that's starting, and yeah, it definitely will help the future generations to continue on the same lines.
And my point is, one political party you mentioned that you are happy with. What about the rest? Because do you think that political parties now need to say in these elections that when they are in the elections, when they are at the peak of their messaging cycle, this is what we are going to do. This needs to be right on top, that this is what we are going to do when it comes to the use of plastic. Do you think that is happening, or do you think that's still missing?
I wouldn't really comment if it's missing or it's happening, but what I can say that if it is actually implemented, if they actually talk about it in the rallies, it will be a good movement again, because everyone looks up to the political parties, and when they see that their leaders are doing it themselves, everyone has a positive impact and says, if even they are doing it, we should do it too.
All right, I'll come to Mr. Joshi. You want to say, add something?
Yes. Last year, when we started the plastic recyclathon, close to 80,000 people donated plastic. This year, when the Prime Minister gave a call, more people became aware. 1,25,000 people of Mumbai donated their plastic, and many more want to do this as a regular habit, that they want to reduce plastic, which is also talking about awareness. And awareness, as these gentlemen also said, a top-down approach helps a lot, because then the scale with which people start getting aware of
Say
it.
when a Aditya Thackeray or when a Prime Minister Modi, someone like them say clean a beach, or plogging, they actually influence people.
Absolutely. These influencers are very, very critical right now. People may not know the consequences, but people at least would look at and say that, okay, let me try doing it because somebody at the top has said so.
Right, so coming back to the politicians, the question really is that awareness, fine, you're doing enough. But one thing that people say is that when we go to political rallies, say, I would like to really hear, someone say from a political rally that, vote for me because I'm going to make your area plastic free. I don't hear that. Why is that not happening? Can't we do that much?
I do agree that it is missing from most of the political party. It's not alone my party. But having said that, what you need to understand, the difference between our party and the other parties. Now you need to, what my question would be, what would be the yardstick to measure the implementation of whether we want to do certain good things or not. The yardstick itself is there. You can see the measures that was been taken by this government for past 5 years. So having said that, I think these beach warriors, or for that matter, Mr. Firoz from Warsaw, the way he took up all this kind of concept of going and cleansing the beach, or for that matter, even implementation of the act itself with the punitive measures, and then making the people, to take that initiative to go and take, as you rightly asked right now, few people, whether there is some kind of difference, whether they are restricted towards using this kind of plastic. I am saying yes, in Mumbai city you can find out, right from my family to my neighborhood, I have seen that they are taking care about it.
So one of the things that's really interesting and encouraging this election is the Election Commission's commitment to reduce the use of single-use plastics. One of the things, that we hear is, you said about politicians top-down approach does work. But, what we often fail to understand is that this is a matter of habit, right? We all are in this habit of using single-use plastics. So, as people who clean these beach, tell me 5 ways in which, or 2 ways in which people can stop using single-use plastics. Tell me 2 ways in which political parties can actually make a bigger impact.
So, like our founder usually says, he says two hands can do wonders. Okay, so what happens is when we call people here to clean, to help us with cleaning, they realize that one single garbage bag or that one single milk packet, it takes a lot of strain and it takes a lot of energy to remove all the sand from it and take it out. When they do that, they realize that when they go back home, they'll, even if 10% of the people start using their own bags while going to the market, or for eggs and for things like that, that is one point. Second point is sir mentioned, like you mentioned, that if these big the election commission and big agencies start supporting the idea and start even being considerate about it, it makes a huge impact. Because as an individual, like he or me or anyone, we may dispose of 10 packets a day, but then as a big agency, they dispose of plastic in tons. So when they are aware themselves and they take a total approach, a positive approach to it, it always works.
All right. So that's interesting. But, again, the question is, coming back to the politicians, and I'd like to come to you, sir. Political messaging is so important in all of this. And how can you think your party, and I'll ask him the same as well, your party weave in to your political messaging the need to focus on this immediately? It's not tomorrow, it's not day after, we need to do this now. How can you weave that into your political message? Are you going to make a commitment here that in the few days of campaigning, you're going to also weave that in your messaging?
Exact. I have already made a statement on for particular these purposes that definitely I am going to help, and I will work out in my, if in futures I will work out for these particular purposes, that I can do it the less plastic, no plastics. What's your one thing? I appreciate all these the volunteer. They do very hard work and they do great jobs and all. But these are the one groups. There are so many other segment also. Like I am actually a chairman of one housing society. Near about 358 flats are there. Right. When we segregate the things and then that goes, the corporation take together all this and take it back.
And we should have talked about it more, sir. When a political party is campaigning, when a huge, massive party, the largest political party in the world is campaigning, how can the party itself weave in the message of the ban on single-use plastics and stop using single-use plastics in its political campaign? How can it do it?
I think to begin with, right from Prime Minister to our legislators has already began that work. Having said that, our Mr. Amit Satam, who is one of the legislators, you must have seen in his locations where he resides around Jew, almost all this kind of thing is almost implemented.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. The last word to Mr. Joshi.
I think the largest party is that of citizens, and all they need to do is start carrying cloth bags the next time they step out, so that automatically the plastic, you're forced to say no to plastic. Just carry a cloth bag the next time you step out.
Well said, sir. I couldn't agree with you more. We're coming to you from the Dadar beach. We hope urgency to get rid of single-use plastics is woven into political campaigns as well, and even in this Maha election. Thank you for watching Mahasangram.